Hey guys, I'm Max and this is Watch Crunch. Today we're hanging out with my friend Matt, who is a uber watch nerd and the founder of Typsim Watches. And he's going to share with us, using his watch collection, how he got from a fossil to starting his own watch company over the course of about 30 years. This should be fun.
Sound check number 3. There we go. My name is Matt Zinski. I'm an architect. I'm a dad. I'm a watch nerd. And I live here in Seattle. Been here for about 8 years. Before that, coming from the East Coast, United States. I decided to start my own watch company, to design and build my own watch. You know, I've always been interested in mechanical devices. I can think back to early elementary school of owning a fossil watch, fashion watches, all up through high school and almost into college there. In college, I really became fascinated with vintage pieces. Buying this 1940s Wittenauer, it's a military watch, Arabic dial. It just fascinated me to think about the mechanisms within it, the heritage of participating in World War II, and frankly how old it was and how well it had endured over the span of, at that time, what, 60, 70 years? Actually, I love this NATO. When I got this watch, my wife knew that I was kind of a Bond fan, and for my birthday she researched what was the military NATO for what would have been the Bond watch back in the day. So he reached out to Phoenix NATO and got a NATO for me before I even understood or knew what the NATO was or the heritage behind that. Now the next watch that I want to touch on here, this is my Max Bill Junghans watch. This, for me, again, touching on who I am as an architect, was kind of the quintessential mid-century watch. The form of this thing follows its function. It's there to tell you the time. And I think this is kind of what the Bauhaus movement was about, was taking objects and distilling them to the absolute minimal functionality while maintaining an aesthetic purity to the function and the form. So getting into the world of modifications, I got into buying kit watches. And so this watch, it's a sterile kit homage watch to a Radiomir 3646. It's a kit that I found really compelling and interesting at this time. Bought it from a company over in England. The case comes and it's absolutely and completely machine finished. The lugs are not soldered on at this point. The dial's not loomed, nothing is assembled. And so it's the kind of kit that I had to go through the process of finishing the case by hand, soldering on the lugs, looming the dial, looming the hands. It was almost the culmination of my journey into modifying and playing with watches. I just kind of took it on and embraced it and just started going from simply removing a movement to disassembling, to cleaning, to repairing parts of it. And I kept going until I've gotten to the point that now I'm servicing and repairing Rolexes, Pateks, and other stuff. The culmination of that is this Tudor 7016. This is the most unoriginal 7016 probably out there. At the same time that I was kind of working on modding watches, I started to collect bits and pieces of what I thought were the watches I wanted to own. I found parts. This is, again, 3-4 years ago when you could still, a little bit more readily than now, find parts to watches like this. And for this one, I got it. It was a movement. And then I got a dial. The dial was falling apart. And I had it redialed. I reloomed it. And it's, for me, it's a special piece just simply because it, again, represents my watchmaking journey of being able to build and bring to life a watch like this. This is a vintage Datejust, a 1603 reference. It's an engine turned bezel, and that's the kind of differentiation of the couple digit difference between 1601 and 1603. This was a restoration. It wasn't running, it was just in disrepair. And so this watch was a part of my journey as a watchmaker, moving into or out of simply modding or building and getting to the point that I'm taking vintage Rolexes and I'm servicing them and restoring them to be as original as possible. And so I very carefully made sure I restored this to be all original, bring it back to life, get it working, and let it tell the story of its life. But it's a gilt dial that's gone through a pretty heavy patina to become tropical and textured. Now on my watch journey, going through all of this self-reflecting, searching, learning what I liked in a watch, I felt like I was always searching for the one. And I'm sure you can relate to this. What's the one watch? What do you keep on your wrist every day? What do your kids know you for? And they say, oh, that was Dad's watch. I was getting my footing on what I appreciated about watches at this time. And for me, it was the vintage Rolex Submariners, the 4-digit references. I landed on this. This is a reference 5512 from 1969. It's a matte dial, meters first, but I did a repair and renovation, let's say. Optimization, I think they sometimes say in the industry, right? I thought, this is it. This is going to be the watch that I wear every day for the rest of my life. I can talk about all the things that are scary and tricky about vintage watches, and you know they're pretty expensive these days, especially 4-digit vintage Rolexes. I definitely did wear it doing renovations to my house. I've worn it swimming, but always there's something about the fact that you're wearing this uber expensive watch on your wrist and concerned that, well, if I do something to it, can I actually get it repaired? Can I get the part for it? You know, that's kind of one part of why I was really kind of pressed to start my own company. So what's on my wrist today? This is my Typsim watch. This watch represents my watch journey, everything that I've desired in watches as I've progressed through that, and everything that I want a watch to be. The name Typsim comes from my background as an architect. Tip and sim are two abbreviations for typical and similar within the architectural industry. The logo on the crown and even on the dial face, this is a reference marker in architectural drawing. It's a circle with a slash through it. And so I took the logo for Typsim, applied it to the 12 marker, and let that inform what would differentiate and make legible the 12 o'clock marker. And so in selecting sword hands, I wanted to balance out the circle forms with something that had a contrast to it, sharp edges. I do want to touch on the luminous. The luminous is a special compound that I developed with RC Tritech, the makers of Super Luminova. And it's a lume that will come white or a slight off shade of white. And that lume will develop patina over time. That'll tell the story of how this watch was used with the way it develops its patina. Now, pointing out the profile of the watch, I've really put forth a lot of effort to make sure that the case back in relationship to the curved lugs lets it sit on the wrist. I want to touch on the movement of this. It is going to be a chronometer grade movement. Some of them will be chronometer certified, some of them won't. But I have to work with a French observatory, Besançon Observatory, and have them go through the process of chronometer certification. And they don't just do the movements the way that Koss does. They expect you to send the entire watch so that they can confirm that the actual watch is performing to the specification, not just the movement. I've worked on watches that are chronometer grade movements. And working on these, you can put the movement over there, you can take the piece, throw it at it, and it just comes together. They're just built to incredible tolerances. On the other hand, the basic movement, you have to struggle a little bit to get that thing put back together, to get it right.